So joining me on the line today, Jackson Millan. I am super excited to have you. Welcome to the call.
Thanks for having me, mate. Looking forward to having a chat.
Yeah, because this time round, we're talking about cash is king in business, and I know that you're probably seeing this out in the marketplace right now. But with the interest rates going up and with the economy tightening as it just keeps squeezing and squeezing, people in business are starting to feel a bit of pain. Creating killer cash flow is the thing that I wanted to talk to you about today. Can you give me a bit of a background into what's this topic all about?
Yes. So we've got to realize that the cash flow is the lifeblood of every single business. And every single business that I've ever looked at has what we refer to as cash flow bottlenecks.
Hmm.
Now, the interesting thing here, David, is that for the vast majority of businesses, their cash flow bottlenecks are not glaringly obvious big things.
Yeah.
The vast majority of business owners are smart people. However, they're often too smart for their own good. And these cash flow bottlenecks are, in isolation, seemingly insignificant things that are consuming that lifeblood for the business, but they are very rarely alone. They are often many and they are frequent and they fly under the radar until they get to a point where one day they don't. And they ultimately consume that precious lifeblood to a point of getting to a clot. And as we know, when there's a clot in the body, and there is that bottleneck in the bloodstream, what happens? We have a stroke. It causes, in many cases, irreparable damage. And therefore, that can compromise your ability as a human being, or your business's ability in order
Yeah.
to sustain itself. And what we're realizing here, David, is that for the first time ever in most of our professional lives, because let's face it, the last time we encountered these types of economic conditions in any way that's comparable is back in the 70s and the 80s.
Yeah.
And I'm sure, well, I know my parents complained about their mortgage rate being 20% and whatever it was. But this is the first time ever where the stakes have risen to a point
Yeah.
whereby many financial models that businesses were running by in previous time periods, where this, quite frankly, the stakes were very low, they're no longer working. And because they do not understand their financial model, they are not able to adjust that financial model to be able to get with the times that we're in right now. And there's going to be a lot of zombie businesses that are unfortunately going to fail, and we're already seeing it,
Yeah.
if they don't work out how to create killer cash flow and remove these cash flow bottlenecks.
Yeah.
So this is something I'm super passionate about
That's
because
it.
this is the future of small business.
Yeah, because to me, cash is king has always been the mantra, right? You run a small business, you got to keep the cash flowing because without cash flow, there's no business. When things tighten up, and what's probably happened to a lot of people is their interest rates on their mortgages have quadrupled in the past 6 months, and that money comes from somewhere, right? Now, if you've got a buffer, awesome, you're going to ride this through with no problem. But I think one of the elements that showed up during COVID as well is this idea of having a war chest or having a buffer account or having some sort of strategies to make sure that there's enough money to allow for the economic shifts. What's your thoughts on this?
I agree with it, mate. And the interesting thing is that for the vast majority of businesses that I've ever looked at, most of them have less than 1 month of cash to operating
Yeah.
expenses.
Yep.
They're running on the smell of an oil rag.
Yep.
They're one bad month away from completely failing in their business
Yes.
and having to unwind all of this amazing good that they've done for years, if not decades.
Mm.
And you owe it to yourself as a business owner to ensure that you have the appropriate runway,
Yeah.
that when the economic tides turn and the environment changes, that you have enough runway in order for you to shift your financial model in order to stay in business.
Yeah.
And the unfortunate thing is, mate, that there are some big businesses out there who thought that they were invincible
Mm.
and have now gone insolvent, who have had to go into liquidation. Because as it was famously said, it's the punch that you don't see coming that knocks you out, right?
Yeah.
And it's many of these businesses that are like have this shield me right attitude. Oh, my clients are always going to demand my services. I'm super busy. It's never going to be any different way. And unfortunately, something changes, and the tides turn, and they get caught with their pants down.
Mm.
And it's critically important that we have that war chest in place.
And I think, like right now, if we said to people, you need to create a war chest, they go, create a war chest. I'm about to go bankrupt. And it's a mindset and it's a philosophical shift. And I think this is what I'm excited about. When we talk about creating killer cash flow in business, it should be done from day one. And it should be done every single day. And I think now that people are feeling the pinch, they're sort of reminded that we should have been doing this from day one. And it's like, when's the best time to invest? Well, 20 years ago. And the second best time is now. It's the same with the cash flow situation, isn't it? It's really about if you're in business and you haven't got killer cash flow right now, um, you should be looking at how do I create it, not only for now to get through this economy, but forever, so that I'm starting to build my war chest, my buffer, and that my business is healthy. Because ironically, when times are tough, it's probably one of the best times to grow a business, isn't it?
You're right, mate. Exactly. And look, it's going to be some tough times. I believe that for the next few years at least, we are going to be in some really tough economic conditions.
Yeah.
But the reality is, if you can set your business up to survive in those time periods and
Mm.
have healthy margins and build a war chest, that when the economy eventually turns and we get back into this bull market, when sentiment has gone back to all time highs, when there's
Yeah.
free flowing capital in the economy,
Yeah.
that you have the ability to ride that wave all the way to the shore.
Yeah.
And it's going to be the work that you do in regards to your cash flow machine over the course of the next 2 to 3 years that
Mm.
is going to set you up to potentially supercharge and fast track your next 10 years. And this is what we're here for as business owners. We're trying to shortcut our path to financial freedom. And
Yeah.
that all starts with mastery of cash flow. But the problem is here, David, that most business owners have never been taught. They're relying on their accountant that gives them their financials
Yeah.
often 12 months late once the year's finished, right? At the very last minute of the deadline.
Yeah.
Um, they don't consider themselves as money and finance people. So they
Yeah.
abdicate this responsibility to Barbara, the bookkeeper,
Yeah.
who comes in once a quarter to do their best in their compliance. And it's just not good enough anymore, David. As a business owner, you need to be able to get into your financial driver's seat, and you need to be able to confidently grab hold of that wheel and be able to navigate it to your destination.
Mm.
And this comes down to understanding the dials, understanding all of the metrics that you need to be looking at, the equivalent of the speedo, the equivalent of the RPMs, the equivalent of the blinkers, the equivalent of the hazard lights,
Yeah.
and the equivalent of the head check. Um, we need these kinds of mechanisms in our business when it comes to our finances.
Yeah.
And it's through having these tools that we can actually be confident and we can actually enjoy doing this process, even if we're not financial folks.
Yeah, and it's funny. It's actually the scorecard of business. And I remember someone pulled me up one day and they said, "Is it always about profit for you?" And I said, "No, profit's just the scorecard. It's just the scorecard. It tells me that you're doing your job properly and people value what you do. And if there's no profit in your bank account and you think you're doing a great job, wait till the economy turns on you and there's not enough to pay bills. All of a sudden, it's not going to be so easy. So I think it's going to be critical, as you say, over the next year or two for people to really understand how to read cash flow, how to invest their cash wisely within their business, and how to find all the holes. So if we talk about who's going to benefit most from this presentation, creating killer cash flow, who's it targeted to?
Yeah. So if you're running a multi six figure or a seven figure business, you've got a really good business model, you do really great work, but you found yourself in a position whereby your business maybe just isn't producing the profit and the cash flow that it once did.
Mm.
You feel like you've got to make choices between growing your business and building your personal wealth. And you'd ideally like to understand how you can create more cash flow so you don't need to make scarcity based choices, where you can grow and scale your business, where you can buy back your time, and
Mm.
where you can also distribute more income so then you can build more wealth and create financial freedom faster.
Yep.
All of this comes down to cash flow.
Right.
And what we're going to do is we're going to create a really simple framework of helping you understand how to reverse engineer your numbers.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to help you understand the 7 levers of endless profits. These are the only levers that you have available in order to influence your profit and cash flow. We're going to help you understand your balance sheet of how do we stop ignoring the most important part of your business. And then how do we use all of these things to create a more profitable and valuable business that has the ability to stand the test of times. And if these kinds of things interest you, then you're going to get a ton of value out of this session.
Awesome. Sounds like perfect timing. I think as this economy tightens and as we move into the new financial year, people are really looking for how do I get more leftover out of my business rather than just turnover. So, Jackson, thanks for your time today. Thanks for sharing a bit of a preview. I'm super excited about getting you into the session and helping these people really grow their cash flow. So, thanks.
Looking forward to it, mate.